Professor, people come to us all the time that are just getting going. And it's kind of exciting because they watch this channel and they talk about some of the things they're afraid of. Afraid of going offshore. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see experienced captains that are afraid of certain things too, right? We see that all the time. So I want to take a step back here and I want to help the viewer be able to relate to, your situation a little bit, because you've gone through this in different stages of your career as a captain, now a charter captain. One time just a weekend warrior, as some might have called you back in the day with your center console. So let's talk about some of the biggest fears of offshore fishing and how you were able to overcome some of them. Okay. Because I think there's probably a whole bunch, and we'll just get right into it right now. So looking back, you started fishing out of the Outer Banks. How many years ago was it?
Man, my son is 21 years old now, and he caught his first sailfish when he was 5. So
it's probably a solid, 16, 17 years ago that you started fishing offshore.
Yeah.
And describe your boat real quick.
It was a 31-foot fountain, just narrow and long, twin outboard engines, and
yellow boat.
Yellow, yeah.
Yeah, yellow stood out. I'm sure you stood out to anybody that was out there.
Yeah.
All right. You had some, I'm sure, fears, nervousness. What were some of those biggest ones?
Well, specific here to the Outer Banks was the inlet and the channels preceding the inlet.
I was definitely afraid of that.
Yeah.
And that's, in fact, why we have this company, this business. Really, the root of it was me wanting to go offshore here in Oregon Inlet, but having zero confidence that I could pull it off without having some terrible accident or something like that. Having watched the show and hearing all the terrible things about Oregon Inlet, et cetera, et cetera. And so what did you do in those early days to overcome that?
Well, I made sure that I was sitting out here well before 5, right there by the bridge, and I would follow the fleet out every morning in the dark.
Yeah, we're at Pirates Cove Marina, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's what you taught me to do.
Yep.
Was sit outside of the marina, or you could do this at the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center too.
You can.
Sit outside, wait for one of these experienced charter boats that run it every single day. And so you just waited and you followed.
That's right. Yeah.
Simple to do.
It is simple to do. Sometimes it's hard to do because you want to go. You might be a half hour early, or you can't make sure you're late because you'll miss them. But you can't become complacent. We've seen people do it over and over and over again and make mistakes. You either run aground, your boat gets tore up in the inlet. You know what I mean?
We see experienced captains do this.
Yeah, I mean, it can, like, even people that have been doing it for years just either has an off morning, or their brain's not working, or they're distracted, anything. It can happen in a split second here.
Yeah. And I find myself constantly, when folks in the community reach out to us and ask us these questions, I'm like, why take the risk?
Oh yeah.
Just do it the smart way. Now, when you started charter captaining, and you had Speechless here, which we're in right now, you actually did it again in terms of, I know for the first few months, it seemed like you were like, I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait to follow one of these captains.
Yeah.
And then it was, especially during bluefin season, it got really interesting because you were leaving and coming back in the dark, and there was so many lines that were changing every day in terms of how to come in and out of the inlet. So explain how long it took you to get comfortable to where now you're the one leading people out.
Yeah, well, it took a while, and I'm still scared to death. You can never become complacent.
Yeah.
I make sure I don't have a lot of distractions. I make sure I'm focused, but it took a while. I mean, if you'd have told me 5 or 6 years ago that I was going to be running all through these channels and through Oregon Inlet all times of night, morning, in the dark, I'd have been like, man, you're crazy. I'm never going to do that.
Right.
But now I'm fairly comfortable doing it. You never want to become comfortable, but now I'm confident. You know what I mean? And it just takes repetition. We've been through there so many times. I have for nighttime, I have the proper lights on here. I've become familiar with the boat, familiar with the electronics, the radar. You know what I mean? I'm comfortable using all those things. And there's still times, like, a couple times year before last. It was really foggy in the morning. I was scared to death, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but you all just get in a line and you go out of the inlet. We all stick together here, and that's the way you do it. And everybody's like, oh, I don't know why you guys are in a line. Well, we do it for a reason. Safety in numbers. You know, if it's foggy, I would rather see that boat in front of me than not be able to see it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So even when we were running from offshore in the fall, we try to stay together, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's the first big fear, especially anywhere in the Outer Banks, but other areas of the world too, is just be smart, follow experienced people out, don't reinvent the wheel.
No.
And wait till you've had enough reps, because one rep isn't enough.
No.
Get enough reps. You were really patient. I was so impressed when we got speechless. You really did just, you know, I felt like it was just the right amount of, you had that, once you got that confidence, then you're like, okay, now I've got this. But there was multiple trips that we did before that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had paying guests on the boat here, and we were ready to go 15 minutes before the fleet, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't pull out until the fleet did.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just, I'm responsible for the safety of everybody on this boat. And when you're not confident, you're not sure, you wait. That's all it is to it. And especially, it's important here because if you haven't been out in 2 weeks, something could have changed. You know what I mean? So
it changes. All right, so that was the first major fear, was just coming in and out of the inlet. Great one. What was another one?
Well, just looking like an idiot. You know what I mean? That was a big fear of mine.
This is one that it's a big deal to you.
Yeah.
I don't think about it as much because I guess I'm naturally I've accepted I'm an idiot. You knew that you wanted to have a career here.
Yeah.
And once you get a black eye, it can be hard to overcome that.
You can.
If you screw it up. So what were like some of those things that were going on in your mind that you were like, this is why I don't want to look like an idiot, or these things I don't want to do?
Yeah, I mean, like just like saying something wrong on the radio, or being in somebody's way, or, you know, cutting somebody's fish off, or being a shadow too much. You know what I mean? And just kind of, I always wanted to go off and do my own thing and catch my own fish. You know, not follow the fleet all the time and stuff like that. And I mean, it's worked out sometimes for me. Sometimes it hasn't. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But your point about don't be an idiot, you didn't want to be an idiot. You understood that your success is going to be dramatically greater if you're working with a team.
Correct. Here. Yep.
That's right, here. And it seems to be the case up and down the coast in many ways.
Yeah.
That if you communicate, I know up in Jersey, they got entire groups of like people that are like teams almost. Yeah. You know, that they're communicating and trying to tell each other, you know, where the catch is at. And, you know, that's certainly the case here. There's a lot of things that you can do to look like an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in front of the other captains. And so it's like, you have been above and beyond conservative when it comes to things like you watching somebody hook up. And I remember early in the days, I was like, hey, he hooked up, go over there, go there. He's like, no. You're like, I do not want to interfere with that person at all. I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to piss them off. And I was always like, man, Ron is just so, you are more careful about not looking like an idiot and not offending and not upsetting someone, one of these, you know, OG captains, than you were about putting yourself in the best position to catch a fish.
Right.
Because ultimately, by giving that respect, that's going to put yourself in the best position.
For the future.
That's right. In the future. So that was really, really well done. Okay. So rule of life. Try not to look like an idiot. It's a great rule, especially out here on the waters.
Right.
All right. What's another major fear that you had that you've been able to overcome or still possibly have?
Well, I mean, the weather has always been a fear, and it should be.
Yes.
That's another thing. You should never become complacent, you know, and even today I sit here and, you know, I've got a trip coming up and you're trying to judge the forecast. Well, is it going to be too rough? Is it not going to be, you know, is it going to be good enough to go? But you just have to, that comes with experience. You know what I mean? You go there on your moderate days, you see how your boat handles it, you know what I mean? And then you can really tell how far you can push the envelope, and then you got to be considerate about the group that you have. You have some older people on here that don't walk around very good, and it's gonna be a super rough day. You just don't go, But that's one of my big fears, and the weather can change so fast. I remember when I first started, we would be out there fishing on my boat and my center console boat, and all of a sudden the wind would pick up and it would get choppy and rough, and there's whitecaps everywhere, where I'm like, oh man, we got to go home. It's going to blow. Knowing in my mind that it's supposed to be a pretty day, but it was just, like a little front that came
intimidating.
through. Yeah, it's intimidating. And all of a sudden we would pack up and start heading home or start trolling towards home. And 30 minutes later, it's pretty again. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe I left there,
Yeah.
So it's weather was a big fear of mine.
Yeah, I mean, and to that, it seems like in conjunction with that, you mentioned this, a lot of people wonder, like, what's too rough to go out?
Yeah.
What's too rough to go out? And of course, the answer is going to vary depending on your boat.
Correct.
What's a general answer you could give to someone that's a weekender, that's got that 30-foot center console versus the sport fish? What would you just say is the cutoff lines?
Well, it could be answered in a lot of different ways. I mean, you can fish in 10 footers as long as they're, 12, 15 seconds apart.
So the big key is, what's that called? There's a name for that. The distance.
Dominant period.
Yeah, the dominant period. Yeah. Right. That dominant period, because at that point, it's just these slow, it's a slow up and down. What gets you is that hard, like chop, yeah. Right? With that no dominant period, no distance between each one of those.
That's right. When the dominant period is short and matches the wave height, you don't want to go.
Give an example of that. You're a 30-footer. All right. Someone says, "What's the cutoff, Captain Ron? Like, at what point should I say not going out?" And I know wind direction has a part of this too.
Yeah.
So what would you say that is?
Well, I mean, me personally, I would be like 4 foot under over 6 seconds. Under 6 seconds, I would not go. You know what I mean? But like a 4 foot waves at like 10 seconds is a beautiful day. You know what I mean? But just the shorter the wave period is bad. I mean, we go in 5 to 7 all the time. You know what I mean? But sometimes they're super close together and it sucks, but other days they're spread apart and it's a lot better.
And it's interesting because there's times when you think it's going to be really rough out there, it's not, and vice versa. It's like you never really know, but we do know that when it's blowing east, it generally just kind of sucks.
It sucks, yeah.
Yes.
North and east.
North and east are the ones that you want to be most aware of,
especially in the current.
Yeah, especially in the current. Okay. Any other fears relevant to this conversation that you've had to overcome, Professor, that you would say are just generally relevant to that person that's thinking about it right now?
Well, I've always had a fear of a catastrophic failure. You know what I mean? Like ringing off a shaft or having a motor go out and stuff like that. And the one thing that I would recommend and that I've learned myself is just be familiar with your gear. Try to be prepared. Like make sure you've got spare parts. You know how to work on things, or you have the safety plan in your mind. Like I can't tell you how many times I've gone over in my mind. Well, all of a sudden we have a shaft break, and there's a 2-inch hole in the bottom of the boat. What do I need to do? You know what I mean? Or if we have a fire, what is the first thing I need to do?
To your point, if the stuff hits the fan, you don't want to be saying, "Where's my gear?"
Right.
Where did we put that?
Or not have the gear on the boat.
Or not have it,
right.
Which is even worse.
Even worse.
And it's easy to forget where you put that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about how many times you've been looking for a tool in your house before, and you're like, "Where did I set that?" You don't have the time for that on a boat.
No.
You need to know where your stuff is.
Yeah.
In case something does happen. I think that is a legitimate fear. I had a lot of fears before I went fishing offshore. I can relate to you. This guy can relate to you. My best thing I ever did was calling you up and saying, "Can you show me the ropes?"
Yeah.
And you showed me and my son the ropes. We had an amazing experience. Obviously, that was the catalyst to this business, but just generally speaking, I just want to stress it again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-mm.
There are people that are willing to help. Find someone that's experienced and go out with them. If you've never trolled with anybody offshore, don't just watch a YouTube video and try it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, just go with someone, pay someone to go with you the first time. It makes no sense not to do that.
Yeah, and the best thing to do is go on a charter a couple times. I realize it costs a lot of money, but that's the best way to learn, you know?
If you're gonna do this, it's high stakes going offshore. It's high stakes.
It costs a lot of money either way.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do this, and you might as well do it right. And of course, if you ever come with us on the boat here on Speechless, this guy he'll share with you everything he knows.
Yeah,
everything he knows.
Nothing top secret about it.
Yeah, I mean, happy to show you.
Yeah.
Happy to have you be a part of it. If you're like, hey, can I try rigging one of these? We'll let you rig one of them up because we want you to feel like, you were part of the experience. So hopefully this helps you overcome those fears that you have. We want to see you offshore. We want to hear your questions. Put them in the comments section. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like it. Make sure you just come fishing with us. We want to fish with you. Slip number 92 at Pirates Cove Marina in Manio, North Carolina. And until the next time, everyone, stay salty.